Hello and welcome to my channel Crying Fly. My name is Steve and today we will install openSUSE Leap on our system. We use openSUSE Leap in the version 15.2 and I will show how can you install this system with the Xfce desktop environment, LVM, and how you can encrypt the system. Okay. We come to my desktop and then we start with the installation. So here we are, but before we start with the installation I will show where you can downloading the image file. I opening my internet browser, Firefox. I go to the search bar here and search for opensuse.org. Then we come to this site here. And here we see now two versions of openSUSE. On the left side we can see the version TumbleView, and this version is a rolling release model as like Arch Linux, and I think this is a good alternative of a Linux system when you will get the newest packages and software. But I think this version is only for persons they know what they're doing here, and for persons they will experiment with the system. And yes, okay, and on the right side we can see the version Leap, and this is the version what use the same basic basis from the SUSE Linux, and so give us the openSUSE Leap version and very stable basic basis. And yes, this version we will install today, and here we have now two images. The offline image and the network image. I have downloaded the offline image because it's better for me to repeat the installations, and when I will install this system on a computer where I have no internet connection, so it's better to select the offline image. And the network image is a good option for you when you have a very stable and fast internet connection. Okay, then we can see here always that the Leap version 15.3 beta version is now available for downloading and testing. When we click here, then we have also the same options to select the offline image or the online image, and yes, or we can all change these tabs and also select an image for these systems. Or here the live version. Okay, we go back. And then we select the offline image. And downloading this now. And when we have finished this, then we must burning this file to a DVD disk, or you use an USB stick and put this image to this one. But in this video I will not show this way, but if you are interested in that, I showing you how can you creating an USB drive, then was good when you just write me a comment, please. Okay. And then we can close this one here and go to my other program, VirtualBox, and here I have already created an virtual system, openSUSE Leap 15.2 minus Xfce. I have give this system 4 GB RAMs and 2 processors, and give this more graphics storage. And yes, then we can see here the image file, and here we can see I have created 3 virtual disks for the installation, and I will create and I will that these 3 virtual disks build an group, and this what we make with the LVM Logical Volume Manager, and then we encrypt this. And the last one is in the installation, we select the Xfce desktop environment and install this now. Okay, now we're starting the installation. Okay. We see now the boot screen of openSUSE Leap, and here we can select boot from the hard disk. We can start the installation. We can upgrade our system. We can here rescue the system. We can boot the Linux system, check the installation media, and memory test. And on the bottom side we can also see some options. On F2 we can select here the language, but we can this also select when we are in the installation, and yes. But now I will change the resolution here. So it's better to show you the installation here in this virtual machine. Then we can here select the source, and we can configure the kernel, or we can import the drivers. Okay, but now we go back and start the installation. So when you have selected the network image and you install this on a notebook and you have no internet connection over the cable connection, then you see a blue window where you can configure the wireless connection, and then you can connect it to this router. Okay, but here we don't use the network image, and so we can't see this. Okay. So now we can see here the welcome screen, and here we can change the language. And we can change the keyboard layout. When we select maybe here German, then you can see the layout is also in German. And when I change English, so you can see the keyboard layout is English. Then we can test this here. But I will change the keyboard layout to German, it's better for me. I test this. Okay. Then we can see here the license agreement. I think it's very cool to see this. And okay. Here you can see the help. Okay. And we go to the next point. And this one here is the point, the network settings, when you have connected your system over the cable connection, and then we can't see this this network settings here. So here we can setting up our connection. No. And we can here give this an host name, static, dynamic address, then yes. Then we can here always configure this one. No. I go to back, and here we have the options to add some device types. When you have a wireless device into your system, then you can scan the networks and can select this one, and then you can enter your password here, and yes. And now I make here a cut, and then we go on with the installation. So now we have internet. I must change this to dynamic address. Next. Next. Can we see now saving the network configuration, activate network services, update configuration. And now we can see this one here, where we have an option to decrypt our disks on your systems. And we see this because I have done the installation before I make this video here. But I canceled this and now we can activate the online repositories. We make this. Now we can see the list of online repositories. Main repository, main update repository, non-OSS repository, and yes, here on the bottom side we can see some informations about the repository, and yes. So we go to the next. Now we adding these repositories to our list. And we can see now some options where we can select a system rule. We can select the desktop with KDE Plasma. We can select the desktop with GNOME, the generic desktop, the server, and the transactional server. This is a server rule but uses a read-only root file system to provide atomic automatic updates of a system without interfering with the running system. Yes, but we select the generate desktop and click on next, and now we can see an example for the partitioning of our virtual drives for the system. But here we can see now that the automatic partitioning have only selected one virtual drive, but this example is not so good for us because we will selecting all 3 virtual disks. And yes, so we go to the bottom side and click on guided setup, and here we can see now all virtual drives here, and we select this one and this one. Now we have selected all. Go to the next, and here we can select a disk to use as the root partition. That's not so important for us because we create later an LVM, and so we have after the LVM configuration 75 gigabytes and not only 25 gigabytes for the root partition. Okay, now we can here select this one. In the German video we can't select here anywhere, and now we select this one here, remove if not needed. Okay, go to next, and here we can enabling the logical volume management LVM, and so we have a drive of 75 gigabytes. Okay, so or then we can here enabling the disk encryption, and yes, so we click on this one and we click on this one because we will creating today an LVM and we will encryptions our disks. But here it's important, I show you, when we make here only 6 characters and click on next, then we get an error, and here we see the password must have at least 8 characters and the password may only contain the following characters. And it's important, we have after the installation, when you're booting your system, then you have only the English keyboard layout, and yes, that's is important when you maybe use an German or another language for the keyboard layout, then it's important for you when you start your system is in English. Okay. So I make here 8 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, I know it's a very simple password. And when we click next, we can see the password is too simple. But for this example it's okay for me, and I clicking on yes. And now we can configure our file system options. And we see the settings for the root LVM logical volume is the Btrfs file system. When we select another one, Xfce, then we see the snapshots is deactivated. And when I select here Btrfs, then we can see the snapshots is enabled. So you can also here deactivate this one, but I think this is the best one here for this. So then I select and separate home LVM logical volume, and here we have also the options to select another file system, but I think this example here is the best solution and it works very good. Yes, so this one here is only important when you have a notebook, but in this case here I select this all also and go next. And now we can see this one here, delete, and we can see here create encrypted partition as LVM physical volume. Here can we also see it here. Here can we see that the partitioner create a partition as BIOS boot partition. And here is the point where we can see creating a volume group system. Its name system. The name is system. And now we see here around 75 gigabytes. And here is the mapping of this. You can see here 25 gigabytes, 25 gigabytes, 25 gigabytes. So then create a LVM logical volume for the swap and logical volume for the home. and for the root. But now we can see here 39 gigabytes for the home partition and 32 gigabytes for the root partition. I think 32 gigabytes for the root partition is too small, and 39 gigabytes is too much. And then we can see here the subvolumes. But before we go to the next, I will change this home partition from 39 gigabytes to 10 gigabytes and give the rest of the storage to the root partition. So now we go to the button side, and here we can see the option Export Partitioner. When we click on this, we can see here start with the current proportional or start with the existing partitions. This one is good when we don't use this one here. But we select this one here, start with the current proportional, and so then we come to the next. You can see now the available storage on Linux. Here can we see now the virtual disk. Here we can see the partitions, the BIOS boot partition, and we can see here the physical volume. Physical volume and physical volume. And here we can see the group of them. System 75 gigabytes LVM, and here is the logical volume of home, logical volume for the root, and the logical volume for the swap. We can see here the type, and we can see here the label, but I don't give this partitions a label here now. Then we can see the mount point, and yes. And when we go here to the RAID, can here create a RAID system, but there are not enough serial unused devices to create a RAID, because we have this disk to an LVM. So then we have here on the option to add a bcache here, or caching. Then we have here the options to NFS, network file system, and here we can click, when we click here on add, we can add an NFS server. Here we can give this the IP address or the host name, the remote directory. Yes, that's so crazy. We can always see in the installation we get help, and when we don't know here, then we have the options to go to the documentation, what we found on the website of openSUSE. And yes, it's very crazy here. Then we can here select the NFS version, the mount point, and yes, here we can also have the help, and okay, cancel. Then we can see here the bottom of S, the root. Here can we see some information about. And yes, so we go to the back to the volume management, and now I will change this size to 10 gigabytes. But before we starting with this configuration, I will show here what can you do. Now we have here the options to modify. So we can here edit the logical volume, we can resize the logical volume, we can delete this one, we can add the volume group, and yes, here the logical volumes. But I will change now this one to 10 gigabytes. I click on this one, and no, here we have the options to change the file system or the mount point, the Xfce tab. We can here create a volume label, select these options here, and we have here already the options to encrypt the device, but we have before this one here, we have already selected this option. Okay. So we go back and click here on resize logical volume, and here we can now change the size to 10 gigabytes. Click on next, and now we can see here our home partition has now 10 gigabytes. Then we go to the root partition, modify, resize logical volume, and here we can see now the maximum size around 61 gigabytes. We click on next, and now we have 61 gigabytes for our root partition. So, and then we can go to this one here, device graphs. This is very cool. I think this one is very good options for the administration. And here we can see now what is planned for the installation, and this is the current system device. And yes, so we go to planned devices, and now we can see here what happens when we install openSUSE Leap with this configuration of our file systems and of our partitions. And yes, so we can see here, oh okay, we can see now here the first virtual drive. You can see here the partition, then we encrypted this one, and after this we create a physical volume. Here we can also see this one, but here the partition for the boot manager, and here is the same like this one here. And these three physical volumes, we adding this to the volume group, and this is the name of this one is system. And after this we can see here the swap. And here we can see now the home folder and the file system of that, and the mount point, and the same for the root file system Btrfs. You can see here the Btrfs subvolumes, and also the mount points. And here we can see the mount point of the root. Then we can save this as an XML, or we can save this as a graphics. I think this one is very cool when we have installed this system on a computer or on a server, and it's very simple, and we can see after the installation what we have creating, and it's better for us in the future. So then we go to the installation summary, and here we can see what happens when we click on accept. You can see here physical volumes. Now we can see here the home partition is 10 gigabytes, the root partition 61 gigabytes, the subvolumes, and the package what we need for use, the LVM, Btrfs, and so on. Here crypt setup for the encryption, and snapper for the snapshots. And yes, then we go to the settings, default mount by UUID, device port, volume label, device name, device ID, device port, and yes. So we click on next, and we click on accept. Now we can see our change, what we're doing, and go to the next. Now we have the options to configure our clock and time zone. Click on next, give this username and password, and here we have the option to use this password for the system administrator, automatic login. When I select this one, disable this, and click on next. Yes, then we can here give this password for the root user, and we have here the option to test our keyboard layout, and here we can import the SSH key, or browse for this. Okay. Now we go to back. In this case we can select these points and we click on next. Yes. And we see now the installation settings. You can see here the bootloader type, group 2. Trusted boot is disabled. Status location. can see here the install boot code into master boot record, and the hard disk, and here the software what we install here, the minimal base system, enhanced base system, app armor, laptop, just system administration, fonts, X Windows system, the size of the packages to install 3 gigabytes, downloading from remote repositories around 484 megabyte. And yes, so but before we install this, we will go to the software center here. We will select the Xfce desktop environment, and so we go to the software, we click on it. And now we can see here the patterns. Here we can see the disk usage of our root system and home. And when we click maybe here on the Xfce desktop environment, and we can see here a little descriptions, but when we click on details, then we have some options. We can here import, export, exit. We can here change this one, check now, options, system verification mode, clean up when deleting packages, allow vendor change, extras, show products, show package changes, show history. This one is a very good option when we have installed the system and when we later update the system, and when we have after the update some problems, so we can here look what packages have maybe crashed our system, and so we can better find the problem. Okay, we close this. Install all matching recommended packages, generate, yes. Okay, then we have here the help, and yes. So when we click on Xfce desktop environment, so we can see now the packages for the generic desktop what we have selected on the start of the installation. And when I click on this one here, we selected the Xfce desktop environment now, so we can see that the Mozilla Thunderbird is selected and some other programs here, GNOME Disk Utility, and yes, Shootwell, Tuner for the as file manager, and yes. So then we have here the options to change the view from patterns, package classification, language, repositories. Yeah. You can see now the Steam and Wine Mono. Search, and when we here maybe search for wine, then we can see here the packages, and when we select this one we can install this, or we can do not install, can never install, and yes. So LibreOffice, Here can we also see LibreOffice in the version 6.4.5.2 minus and so on. And on my system I have selected never install because I use the Flatpak version of LibreOffice. And yes, so okay, so now I change the view to the patterns. We see the Xfce desktop environment is selected, and we click on accept. Now we can see the automatic changes. These packages we will install. Okay, we click on continue. Then we go to the software back, and now we can see here 3% of disk usage in the root partition. Okay, we click on OK. And here we can see now the Xfce desktop environment is here. Then we can see the multimedia, fonts and graphics. The size of package to install is now 4.6 gigabytes, and we're downloading around 786 megabyte from the online repositories. And yes, so, and when you click on install, then you can get another window when you use maybe an NVIDIA graphics card, and there we can see then would you like to install the experimental driver, but it's better when you don't install this one, and click on cancel. And yes, so then we install this one here. Now click on install, and now we can see the installation is starting, and we can see here on the top side we can see how many packages are installed now. We can see the size 4.5 gigabytes, and on the middle we can see what happens. And yes, so we switch to the other tab here, openSUSE lib release notes, and here we have some informations that we can read in here. Here we can see the Btrfs snapshots, a description of this, a read-only root file system, transactional server needs at least 12 gigabytes of disk space, and so on. Here is the link for the documentation of openSUSE. and here we can go to the product news. Yes, I think it's very cool. And yes, so that was for today, and in the next videos I will show more about openSUSE. And okay, this was. So I thank you for watching, and if you liked my video, then it's good when you give me a thumb up please, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel Crying Fly. And don't forget to click on the little bell here so you don't miss any news in the future. Okay, that was, and goodbye.